saw England for the first time, I was a child at school sitting at a desk. The England I was looking at was laid out on a map gently, beautifully, delicately, a very special jewel. England was a special jewel, all right, and only special people got to wear it. The people who got to wear England were English people. And they wore it well. They wore it everywhere, in jungles, in deserts, on plains, on top of the highest mountains, on all the oceans, on all the seas, in places where they weren't welcome, in places where they should not have been. When my teacher had pinned this map up on the blackboard, she said, "This is England." And she said it with authority, seriousness, and adoration, and we all sat up. It was as if she had said, "This is Jerusalem, the place you will go to when you die, but only if you have been good." We understood then, we were meant to understand then, that England was to be our source of myth and the source from which we got our sense of reality, our sense of what was meaningful and our sense of what was meaningless. And much about our own lives and much about the very idea of us headed that last list. When my teacher showed us the map, she asked us to study it carefully, because no test we would ever take would be complete without this statement: "Draw a map of England." I didn't know then that the statement, "Draw a map of England," was something far worse than a declaration of war. For in fact, a flat-out declaration of war would have put me in alert. And again, in fact, there was no need for war. I had long ago been conquered. I didn't know then that the statement was part of a process that would result in my erasure. Not my physical erasure, but my erasure all the same. I didn't know then that this statement was meant to make me feel an awe and small whenever I heard the word England. Awe at its existence and small because I wasn't from it. I didn't know very much of anything then. Certainly not what a blessing it was that I was unable to draw a map of England. We would read phrases like, "And then there were gentle mountains and low blue skies and moors over which people took walks for nothing but pleasure," when where I lived, a walk was an act of labor, a burden, something only death or the automobile could relieve. And there were things that a small turn of a head could convey. Entire worlds, whole lives would depend on this thing, a certain turn of a head. But there they were again. They loved their children. Their children were sent to their own rooms as a punishment. Rooms larger than my entire house. They were special. Everything about them said so. Even their clothes. Their clothes rustled, swished, and soothed. The world was theirs, not mine. Everything told me so. The reality of my life was conquests, subjugation, humiliation, enforced amnesia. I was forced to forget. Every single person living on Hawkins Street, where I lived, was descended from a slave. And John Hawkins' ship, the one on which he transported people he had bought and kidnapped, was called the Jesus. You see, the space between the idea of something and its reality is always wide and deep and dark. The longer they're kept apart, the idea of thing and reality of thing, the wider the width, the deeper the depth, the thicker and darker the darkness. This space starts out empty. There's nothing in it. But it rapidly becomes filled up with obsession or desire or hatred or love. Sometimes all of these things. Sometimes some of these things. And sometimes only one of these things. The existence of the world as I came to know it was a result of this. Idea of thing over here, and reality of thing way, way over there. There was Christopher Columbus, an unlikable man, an unpleasant man, a liar, and so of course a thief, surrounded by maps and schemes and plans. And there was the reality on the other side of that width, that depth, that darkness. He became obsessed. He became filled with desire. The hatred came later, and love was never a part of it. Eventually, his idea met the longed-for reality. That the idea of something and its reality are often two completely different things is something no one ever remembers. And so when they meet and find that they're not compatible, the weaker of the two, idea or reality, dies. That idea Christopher Columbus had was more powerful than the reality he met. And so the reality he met died. I was on a train in England with a friend, an English woman. Before we were in England, she liked me very much. In England, she didn't like me at all. She didn't like the claim I said I had on England. She didn't like the view I had of England. I mean, I didn't like England. She didn't like England, but she didn't like me not liking it too. She said, I want to show you my England. I want to show you the England that I know and love. I told her many times before that I knew England, and I didn't want to love it anyway. She no longer lived in England. It was her own country. But it hadn't been kind to her. So she left. Yeah, I may be capable of prejudice. But my prejudices have no weight to them. My prejudices have no force behind them. My prejudices remain opinions. My prejudices remain my personal opinion. And a great feeling of rage and disappointment came over me as I looked at England. My head full of personal opinions that could not have my public approval. The people I come from are powerless to do evil on a grand scale. I wish every sentence, everything I knew that began with England would end with, and then it all died. We don't know how, it just all died.